Oh, we got us a bronze cowboy here, folks. A bronze cowboy. And I'm in my cowboy hat, which only means one thing. We're reviewing another Western novel. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today we're going to be reviewing The Californios by Louis L'Amour. One of the first novels I ever read as a kid. You know, if you followed my story, you know that I read The Sword of Shannara first when I was just a boy, 12, 13 years old. Loved it, fantasy book. Read The Lord of the Rings after that, loved them, fantasy books. But then I didn't know where else to go. The only other novels that my library had in Sevier County, Utah, middle of the desert, were Louis L'Amour novels. So the first, I was addicted to reading after The Sword of Shannara, Lord of the Rings. I became addicted to reading. I just wanted to read whatever I could. I went to the little library in Sevier County, Utah, and I started looking through the Western novels. I came across The Californios by Louis L'Amour. It was one of the first novels I read as a kid, and it still holds a magical place in my heart to this day. I since read these are all my Louis L'Amour books. There's about 100 little paperbacks here. I've got all of them. Some down here, up here. Got them all. I'm going to review every single one of them. Might take me 10 years, but I'm going to reread every single one of these and give a review. And I started with The Californios because it was the first one I read as a kid, and I loved it, and I've read it several times since, and I just reread it, and I loved it still. Louis L'Amour. 300 million copies of his book sold, man. One of the top 5 best-selling authors in the history of the world. Louis L'Amour. This was written in 1974. You know, we always talk about the covers. One of the things I love about all the Louis L'Amour books, not just this one, is the cover art. Every Louis L'Amour, especially back when I was buying them in the 80s, had these wonderful Old West paintings on the covers. Every one of them, every single Louis L'Amour book just has a great painting. I mean, every one of them is absolutely fantastic, including The Californios. This painting was a painting done in 1996 by Gordon Crabb. Now, Gordon Crabb also, I mean, look how realistic that is. A nice cowboy in front of the Red Rock deserts. You know, the landscape cowboy. Photorealistic painting, all done with oil paints. Gordon Crabb. This Gordon Crabb guy, not only did he paint a lot of the Louis L'Amour covers, but he also painted a lot of fantasy novels for Daw Books and stuff like that. So he's a pretty well-known illustrator. What's the Californios about? One of the reasons I love this is because, believe it or not, if you're a fantasy fan or a science fiction fan, you're going to love Louis L'Amour books because Louis L'Amour puts a lot of supernatural stuff in his books. I know you wouldn't think that, but The Californios actually is one of the more heavily, there's a lot of supernatural things going on in this. I mean, this book is straight up Western adventure, and it's written well. It's another thing about Louis L'Amour is all of his books are written spectacularly. If you want to get the flavor and feel of the Old West, pick up any Louis L'Amour novel, and he will drop you right down into the desert like you have never been put in the desert before. He just describes everything so eloquently. His prose is crisp, it's on point, it's fantastic. You're right there in the Old West with these cowboys and Indians. And the thing is it's realistic. It's not overly fantasized, gunslingers with the quick draw. it's like realistic cowboy stuff. I mean, there is some of that. There is some of the gunslinger stuff, some of the saloon fights, all of that stuff in all of his novels. But it's done very grim, darkish, in that it's realistic. Realistic. And the Californios is one of those books. I mean, the Californios just starts out with pirates, Mexican bandits, cowboys, ranchers, gunslingers, Indians, Indian mysticism, buried treasures, homesteaders just hacking their life out of. So in Malibu, the Californio starts in Malibu, California, where the homesteaders, a guy named Jamie Melcurin from Ireland. Jamie Melcurin, he's a homesteader in Malibu, and he's hidden some Spanish gold up in some mines up above Malibu. But it's not told anybody about it, and there's only legends that maybe it's there. But everybody wants it. Everybody's kind of got wind of it. So everybody's this kind of a search for, it's kind of like a pirate search for hidden treasure. Because Jamie passes away, he doesn't tell anybody where it is. And now his wife and his sons have to kind of run the ranch. And of course, they're homesteaders. There's bad people that want the ranch. A lot of, typical stuff. Sean, his oldest son, is sort of an adventurer. He's sort of a pirate adventurer. He has a sailing ship. He travels all around the world, to China, Hong Kong, Mexico, different places doing, just like pirate things. He comes back and he wants to help his mother save the homestead. And at the same time, he was in Mexico with this ship. He had a stowaway on his ship. It was a charming young Spanish lady, and she was trying to escape her abusive relationship, stowed away on his ship. Anyway, the Mexican bandits sort of follow her back to Malibu, California to get her back. So now Sean he's come back to his homestead. He's got Mexican bandits trying to fight him. He's got people trying to take his homestead. He's got to save everybody somehow, and there's this gold up in the mountains that's a mystery, and everybody kind of wants that too. And there's the thing, and that's the plot of the story. And there's kind of this old Indian that kind of knows everything, and this is where the magical stuff starts to happen. Is we've got this old Indian who's got a lot of wise, sage advice, and sort of helps Sean and his mother find the lost Spanish gold that his father's hidden, right? But it's a mystical ghost story. I mean, just as they travel through the red rock cliffs and the desert landscapes looking for this mine, it just turns into a ghost story. They've got the Mexican bandits following them, they've got the gunslingers following them, they've got the Indian tribes following them. Everybody's following them, trying to get to this gold, and it turns into a real mystical ghost story where just things are creeping around. Oh, kitty. Sorry about that. We'll edit this part out. The cat, again, knocked over the... Apologize for that. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. All the bandits are chasing him for the gold. It turns into a real ghost story where really creepy things are happening in the mountains and the cliffs and all of that. And it's cool. And there's one line that is my favorite line of almost any book I've ever read. And it's in this book on page 56, where the old Indian mystic is trying to teach our young Irish boy, Sean McCurran, some sage advice. And he says, because they're talking about, and that's the thing about Louis L'Amour novels, they're full of a lot of philosophy, a lot of Old West philosophy, a lot of just life advice in general. And one of the things that the old mystic says to Sean on their adventure is, Sean says, you seem like an educated old man. And the Indian mystic says, what is education but a conditioning of the mind to a society and a way of life? There are many kinds of education, and often education closes as many doors as it opens, for to believe implies disbelief. One accepts one kind of belief but closes the mind to all that is are all that seems to be contradictory. I think that's, I really liked that. It's kind of like a good life philosophy, is that you can get so stuck in what you've learned or what you think that you know about the world that you just sort of discount every other philosophy that's out there. It's a bad way to live, and the Indian was trying to teach our young cowboy Sean, our young pirate slash cowboy Sean, who's right there on the cover, trying to teach him, don't just hold on to one set of beliefs, be they religious or political, because they're going to disappoint you in the end. And I think that's kind of the theme of this book. And it's a great, grand Western adventure with, all the trimmings and trappings. I loved it as a kid. I've reread it several times since. I give it 9.5 out of 10. It's one of my favorite Western novels of all time. Every Louis L'Amour novel is about 200 pages. You can sit and read it in an afternoon. They're fantastic. Go out and get them, please.